The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, I now call this meeting of the City Council to order. Please note that pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, as well as Mayor Curtatoni's declaration of emergency on March 15, 2020, this meeting of the City Council will be conducted via remote participation. We'll post an audio recording, audio-video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website and local cable access government channels. Now please rise for the prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Mr. President, let's begin this meeting with a prayer. God, grant this City Council the serenity to accept the things that cannot be changed, the courage to change the things that can be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. And now let's join in a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
This is roll call. Councilor Niedergang.
Here.
Councilor White.
Here.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Here.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Strezzo.
Here.
Councilor Klingon.
Present.
Councilor Mba.
Present.
Councilor Scott.
Present.
Councilor Rossetti.
Present.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors are present. We have a quorum.
All right, do we have any moments of silence? Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Today, March 11th, is the 6th anniversary of the passing of Tom Taylor, former Ward 3 alderman. And I'd ask that we keep the Taylor family in our thoughts tonight. Thank you.
Do we have any further? Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. The whole council would like to sign on. Any further moments of silence? Hearing none, please rise for a moment of silence. Please be seated. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 3 is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 11th.
This item is laid on the table for approval. Now, before we move on, there are some requests to take items out of order. Councilor Klingon would like to take item 9 out of order, which is we will deal with the public hearings first. But Councilor Klingon would like to take item 9 out of order, which is related to pilot agreements. The city has requested that items 25 and 27 be taken out of order. These are financial requests with staff present. Councilor Davis would like to take an item to discharge out of committee related to the elections calendar. And Councilor Scott would like to take item number 43 out of order, which is related to staffing, city staffing. Are there any other requests to take items out of order? Hearing none, let's read the next item, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, item number 4 is a public hearing on a grant location application submitted by Eversource to relocate a utility pole in Prospect Street 30 feet southwest, closer to the Prospect Street Bridge.
I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon, and I see Jackie Duffy in the audience.
Mr. President.
This work is necessary to upgrade the service and allow for site construction and access requested by the customer. They're putting in a new driveway.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. Going once, going twice. I now declare this public hearing closed. Are there any comments from the council? Please note that Councilor Scott is recused from this item. Any discussion from the council? Hearing no discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Item number 5 is a public hearing and a grand location application submitted by Eversource to relocate a utility pole in Allen Street, 20 feet south to the southern edge of Charlestown Street.
I now declare this public hearing open. Is anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Jackie Duffy.
Hi, Jackie Duffy, Eversource. We'd like to relocate this pole for a driveway widening for an ongoing construction project per the customer request.
All right, is anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. Going once, going twice. All right, I now declare this public hearing closed. Is there anyone on the council who has any comments? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Item number 6 is a public hearing and grand location applications by TC Systems to install 465 feet of conduit in Grand Union Boulevard from a frit manhole at the intersection of Foley Street and Grand Union Boulevard to a proposed handhold near the intersection of Canal Street and Grand Union Boulevard. I'm sorry this isn't up on the screen. I'll put it there now.
All right, I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. Here we go, Adam Heller. Let me unmute you. You're unmuted on my side, Adam.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, this is Adam Heller from Sienna Engineering Group representing TC Systems. Thanks for having us. I'd be happy to take any questions about this petition on Grand Union.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Please use the little hand icon. Going once, going twice. I now declare this public hearing closed. Is there any comments from the council? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Item number 7 is a public hearing and grand location submitted by TC Systems to install 480 feet of conduit in Foley Street and Great River Road from a frit manhole across the street from 460 Foley Street to a proposed handhole at the rear on Great River Road at the rear of 449 Canal Street.
All right, I now declare this public hearing open. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? Adam Heller.
Yep. Again, Adam Heller from Sienna Engineering Group representing TC Systems. Be happy to take any questions on this one.
All right, is there any comment from the public? Please use the little hand icon. Seeing no comment from the public, I declare this public hearing closed. Is there any comment from the council? Councilor Strezza.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, this is for, I'll go back in time and number 6 and 7 through you to the TC representative. How many days is this project planned to be? And also, because it's a highly frequented area and we're coming in spring, will pedestrians be affected in any way?
So each of these projects should take about 2 days apiece. And any impact to pedestrian traffic, as you can see, most of it is in the street rather than the sidewalk. But if there is any impact to pedestrian right away, there would be a representative on site to make sure that there's a clear path or some type of detour to get everybody around safely.
Okay, so there are no plans to close sidewalks?
There are not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Is there any further questions from the public or from the council? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval. All right, and that's it for public hearings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we move then to item number 9, which is a resolution submitted by Councilors Klingon, Davis, Ballantyne, Niedergang, White, and Umbaugh, supporting the enactment of payment in lieu of taxes legislation.
Councilor Klingon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to my colleagues and the audience at home. As you all know, we have an ordinance sitting in committee that will allow us to enact a payment in lieu of taxes, enter into those payment in lieu of taxes with nonprofits as long as they have property worth a certain amount of money. So these pieces of legislation are up at the, they've been filed by Representative Eidhoven, and we just want to show our support. We're hoping that other cities and towns will also show this support. And with that said, so that would allow, this would allow us to enact that ordinance. And I just wanted, there's a couple of whereases, and I'm going to briefly ask sponsor Marianne Walls for a brief comment. So it's where, this is for HD 3207 and SD 2129. Whereas the City of Somerville's large nonprofit sector plays an important role in the city's success, but the significant amount of property held in tax-exempt status presents unique challenges to its tax base. And whereas cities across America, including Massachusetts, receive voluntary payments in lieu of taxes or pilot payments from their largest private tax-exempt institutions in recognition of the critical municipal services provided by the cities, such as fire, police, rescue, public works. And whereas the City of Somerville's council supports efforts to have a fair and equitable pilot, is in favor of fair and equitable pilot agreements, now therefore be it that the City Council supports changes to Massachusetts General Law 59 that would make it easier for municipalities to collect a minimum of 20% of tax value from large nonprofits having property valuing more than $15 million. So yeah, so this legislation would allow us to then craft that ordinance, which has been, I believe it's in committee, it's been looked at from legal, so we should be taking that up soon, but we really need this to pass in order for anything to happen. So I wanted to sponsor somebody from the community who's basically been a part of a group of activists that have been leading the charge on the pilot ordinance, as well as the supporting legislation. So with your permission, Mr. President, I would like to sponsor Marianne Walls.
All right, the entire council would like to sign on to this order. Any objection to sponsoring Marianne Walls? Seeing none, let me unmute you. Marianne, you're unmuted on my side.
Good evening, and I want to thank you all for letting me talk. This passage of this law is very important. Back in 2013, Northampton filed it initially, and it's been just rides itself out every 2 years. The importance of this is because 25% of the tax value for large nonprofits is still half of what the residents of any municipality pays in residential taxes. And as we all know, all municipalities rely on residential taxes more than they rely on businesses. And that's the same in Somerville. Here in Somerville and across the state of Massachusetts, large nonprofits give what they want if they choose to give something. And this law would actually hold them accountable and give the municipalities the power to decide if they want to enforce an ordinance around 25%. They also will then have the option to negotiate a better community benefits agreement if they choose to, but at least puts the power back in the municipalities rather than the large nonprofits. Currently, as we all know, there's no agreement with Tufts. We've gone back and forth with them around an equitable agreement, and they have set the standard. Even in their community benefits agreement, they take that on the backs of their students and workers and count that towards their payment to the city. This would at least be consistent with the ordinance that has been sitting there in legislative matters. It's all consistent, so we ask that you endorse this and help support it through the legislators so that it doesn't die again. We are working as a coalition across the state. We have signed on 2 senators from the western part of the state. Northampton has been fully on board. And we are in the process of trying to get MMA's endorsement because it is their original legislation that they filed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask that this be put on file with a copy sent to our state delegation and as well as the governor's office.
We have a question from Councilor Scarzo before that.
No, I had it answered. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign on.
All right, very good. Any further discussion? Councilor Ballantyne.
I just want to say thank you to Councillor Clemingen for putting this forward, and certainly all the work that Marion Walls has done on this. I think it's a great idea. I believe many years ago, our former state rep, also Denise Provo, also worked on this. So it's nice to hear that there's more support for it, at least with some representation from the eastern part of the city. Eastern part of the state, western part of the state. Okay, I'll get it right sooner or later. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully we'll get the whole state. Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, thank you. Thank you, Councilor, through you, thank you, Councilor Clingan, for bringing this back before us. Given that I heard Marianne say that they're hoping that MMA will also get on board with this, I would suggest that we also send a copy to the Mass Municipal Association, and if the clerk could draft a cover letter expressing strong support of this, and if any of them wishes to speak to us directly, to contact either yourself, Councilor Clingan, or our president, just so they're aware that we think this is worthy of really getting a strong push.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So just to give people an update too on the city's ordinance, which Marianne Walls brought to us, we have had the city solicitor's office have drafted. They have a new draft that hopefully we'll discuss in legislative matters soon, and hopefully pass it soon. But if the state did it, that'd be so much better. This item is laid on the table for approval with a copy sent to our state delegation as well as the Mass Municipal Association with a cover letter. Next item.
Mr. President, we move then to item number 25, which is a request of the mayor requesting approval to extend the contract with John Risco through March 31st of 2022 and add $12,500 to the contract for lead abatement inspection services.
All right, so we have city staff here to discuss these two items. If it gets into an extensive conversation, I'd rather refer to committee if there's really detailed questions. But if people have questions and anybody would like to make a motion to approve, you're welcome to do so. I will turn it over to Alan and Russell to discuss this item. You're muted.
Thank you through the chair, Mr. President. This should be relatively a straightforward item. We had a HUD lead abatement grant from 2017 to 2020. Because of COVID and other factors, we received a grant extension for additional 6 months with a closeout period. And so as part of the grant, we were required to have a contracted lead inspector. And so this would just extend the lead inspector through the term of the extended grant. And the additional $12,500 is accounted for in our grant funding. So it would be no city funds needed.
All right, is there any discussion from the council? Councilor Strezza.
Question. Thank you, Mr. President. So through you to our guests and department heads, can you tell me what kind of efforts you're going to put forward to get this out to the public and expand, because this is exciting, but of your services?
Through the chair to the councilor, sure. Fortunately, program manager Russell Cody is here. We have been making continuous efforts through the program to market those, and manager Russell can speak to it a little bit, probably in better detail than I can.
Right now, we're actually in the process of sending out a mailing throughout the city, a postcard mailing to all residents. And in the next couple of weeks, we are planning on hosting a info session via Zoom to interested residents who would like to learn more about the program. And I'm happy to provide links for that info session to all the council members. If they'd like to share it with their constituents, that would be great.
Yay! That's exciting. I always hear lots of interest in this program. So yes, I'd love to have information on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, is there any further discussion? Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Sorry,
Councilor
Mr.
Scott moves, Councilor Scott.
Yeah, I was just looking for my button here. Just to be clear, this is only extending the funding through the contract, through the grant extension, and the 12,500 we're receiving that extra funding through the grant, correct?
Through the chair, President, to Councilor Scott. Yes, we did not receive additional funds in the grant. We just need additional time to complete the grant to its original terms. So therefore, the 12,500 is already included in the original grant award.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Mr. President, I move to approve.
All right, Councilor Scott moves to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote on this item.
Mr. President, this is a roll call vote on the approval of item 25, the extension of a contract with John Risco. On that item, Councilor Niedergang,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of that item. That contract extension has been approved.
All right, next item.
We move to item number 27, which is a request of the mayor requesting approval of a time-only contract extension for Sims Maney McKee Associates for an additional 3 years for the Central Hill Design and Construction Administration.
All right, we have Alan and Courtney now. Any comments from the city?
Thank you again through the chair to President, through the councilors. Again, this is hopefully what should be a relatively straightforward contract extension. Again, due to extenuating circumstances and construction delays, we had to delay the schoolyard playground portion of the Central Hill project out. And it also coincides with some grant funding that we have, so we're moving forward on that. And there are also additional construction delays on the larger project. Sims Maney and McKee is the designer and construction admin for the larger project. So while we feel that 3 years is a conservative timeline to wrap up the schoolyard project, we would like to retain them and have the flexibility in the contract for the remainder of the larger Central Hill project. And Ms. Kirk is here should you have any additional project-specific questions.
All right, is there any discussion from the council?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Councilor Rossetti?
Thank you, sir. Through you, has there been any change in the plan that will include the ability for parking for the staff and for visitors?
Through the chair to Councilor Rossetti, the Phase 1 Central Hill campus plan is just the portion that is in front of the high school, the new high school building, and the playground in front of the library. If I'm interpreting your question correctly, any additional thought about parking is residing with the planning for the 1895 renovation and City Hall renovation. So what is bid ready to be constructed for phase one is still in compliance with the high school zoning decision for the number of parking spaces for the high school and the library.
Okay, thank you for that answer. It's the first I've heard that there may be parking for the phase that has yet to come before this body of the 1895 building. I know that's down the road, but I have consistently voted no on the Central Hill project, so I want to explain to the community I will be voting no on this because I still feel strongly that there should have been parking in the plan. And I'm going to stick with my gut on this one and continue to vote no.
Any further discussion from the council? Here, no discussion. Is there any motion?
Move to approve.
Council White moves to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none. Please call the roll on this item.
This is a roll call vote on the approval of item number 27, which extends the contract with Sims Maney McKee. On that motion, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
No.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, 10 councilors have voted in favor of that item. 1 is opposed. That motion has been approved.
All right. Thank you very much for coming.
Mr. President, we move next to item number 32, which is a communication submitted by the city solicitor requesting to retain outside counsel to determine how best to pursue the prompt access of COVID-19 vaccinations to disadvantaged residents.
Okay, on the item. Sorry, Mr. Clerk, I don't remember this one to take out of order, but this is a pro bono request. Am I correct?
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I had this on my list. My apologies. This is a request that City Solicitor Wright contacted me about, and I don't know if it's pro bono, but I know that he's available
We have
as an attendee.
Yes, I'll unmute you, Frank. Seeing no objection, Mr. Wright, please speak up.
Yes, Mr. President, Frank Wright, City Solicitor. I hope you can hear me. I'm having some technical difficulties working off my phone. The firm Foley Hoag has offered its services pro bono. The mayor wishes to explore whatever legal avenues we may have that exist to expedite the vaccination of our Somerville residents who are either vulnerable population or essential workers that the state expects back to work now or to return to work soon, yet have not been prioritized for vaccination. With vaccination availability expected to ramp up in the coming weeks, we want to explore this immediately, so we would ask for immediate consideration from the City Council to see.
Yep, and just so people know, the pro bono attorney is not here because the last pro bono attorney we had got stuck for several hours waiting, and they're doing this for free. So any questions? We have Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, yes, it's on this very language, pro bono. Pro bono was not noted in the language of the request before us, and I know previously, it might have been in finance that my colleague will be reporting out, the language that was sent to us for consideration did state pro bono. This does not. So if there's no objection by City Solicitor Wright, I'd like to—
I apologize, I cannot.
That the City Solicitor request to retain outside counsel pro bono to determine if there's no objection from the solicitor to add that language.
No objection, Mr. President.
Okay, so Councilor Rossetti makes a motion.
I have no objection, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Mr. Solicitor. So Councilor Rossetti moves to add pro bono to where did we want this? Let's see. To retain pro bono outside counsel to determine how to best pursue. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing no discussion, please call the roll.
The first, there needs to be a vote on the amendment, I believe, of the request.
Yes, that's what we're voting on right now.
Okay, my apologies. Once again, this is a roll call vote on amending the communication from the city solicitor to specify pro bono outside counsel. On that amendment, Councilor Niedergang,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of that amendment. The amendment has been made, has been adopted.
All right, so the next item, Councilor Davis would like to discharge item 211372 out of the Legislative Matters Committee. I believe we need a roll call to discharge first.
Just to be clear, Mr. President, a late item I'd like to take out of order.
Okay, is this the one or?
Yeah, I submitted this as a late item just so that it's before us.
Okay, very good.
As I said, to pull 211372 out of committee in hopes that it would be taken up by the council this evening.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. President, to please me, I'd appreciate a vote to finish consideration of item number 32, which has now been amended, but still needs a vote to be approved.
Yes, thank you. Getting ahead of myself. Roll call vote on item number 32.
On item number 32, as amended, Councilor Niedergang,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, now all 11 councilors have voted in favor of item number 32 as amended.
Okay, now on to the late item.
Now we move to the late item, which is a motion from Councilor Davis to discharge item number 211372 from the Committee on Legislative Matters. This item 211372 is a request to the mayor requesting approval of the 2021 local election calendar.
Okay, and we need a roll call to discharge, correct?
Correct.
Please call the roll on discharge. For discussion, seeing none, please call the roll.
On discharging that item, Councilor Niedergang,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of discharging that item. The 2021 local election calendar proposal is now before this council.
All right, Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this was the schedule for the upcoming election submitted by the administration on the advice of Mr. Salerno, Dr. Salerno, and I would move to approve the request this evening unless there's any debate.
Okay, and we also have Nick Solano's in the audience if people have questions. Councilor Davis moves to approve. Discussion, Councilor White.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you to Mr. Salerno, I guess the first question I have is, has any changes been made to the prior practice about nomination papers because of COVID-19? I believe at the state election, as a result of the decision of the Supreme Judicial Court, it was permitted to actually, I believe, scan in or electronically submit nomination signatures. So I was wondering if there's any plans on that by the Elections Commission here in Somerville.
Through you, Mr. President, we contacted the state and got an opinion from them, and they were advised that that we do not do that.
Okay, so through the chair, if I could follow up, I guess the concern I have, especially with the coronavirus situation, but even before, is we have a relatively short window. We go from May 3rd to June 9th. Now, Mr. Siller, I'm not faulting you. That was a schedule, I believe, that the old Board of Aldermen established a few election cycles ago. But it really is, in my mind, a relatively narrow period of time, given what many other communities do, and also what we used to do historically. May 3rd is kind of early in the season, vis-a-vis what other communities do, because you want to give folks maybe a longer opportunity to consider whether they're going to run or not. And then the window to close nominations signatures is 36 days, I believe. Now, unfortunately, that short period of time, I think, handicaps people who may not have an organization, newer folks who may want to run, people, let's say, from a background, an immigrant background or whatever, because many folks won't have a political organization. I mean, for those of us who are incumbents, yeah, to get 150 or 200 signatures, you have 5 volunteers yourself, and you're able to do it in a relatively short and easy period of time. But I'm thinking of novice candidates, the people that they may know, may not have political experience, and it's also tough to get people who are going to go door to door a lot. So I've always had a concern about this, the narrowing of the window. I don't really think it serves a real important purpose, because it doesn't interfere with the time that the Elections Commission needs to certify signatures in advance of a primary election or not. So those are my concerns, and maybe through the chair to ask Mr. Salerno, because Nick, you and I have been around for a while, and maybe you can confirm that that sort of was a change that was enacted a few years ago. And I believe there used to be a longer period than just 35 or 36 days.
Through the chair, I really don't recall what happened prior to this type of proposal we have in place. But I have concurred with other communities in the area and also the state, and just, to get other opinions. And everybody within my peer group has agreed with me, and I accept your suggestions, Councilor White, but they've concurred that 5 weeks is more than sufficient time to get the required signatures for these municipal elections. And it is and you are correct that we did spend some time on this. I know you played an integral part in putting this type of calendar together, and it has proven successful now for the last 15 or 18 years, to the best of my recollection. And again, I went with this based on some reasoning. For example, and I know it's not the part of the calendar that you spoke about, but it's a week after Labor Day to have the preliminary. It's also the night before the Jewish high holidays start. And again, in checking with people within my peer group, and I did this just to justify my own thoughts, the thinking is that 5 weeks is more than sufficient to gather the number of signatures required, anywhere from 100 to 150, and mayor is a little bit more. So I went with it because it flows quite easily, quite nicely, and everything is sort of wrapped up, if I may, prior to the 4th of July. And candidates can do whatever they want for the summer. They can either work hard or coast or just be sociable. And meanwhile, they've gotten their signatures out of the way. So I look at it as a pretty, a long enough period of time. That's my opinion. You may differ with me, for people to gather signatures. And a lot of thought went into this.
Yeah, through the chair. Unfortunately, I just learned a couple of hours ago, so I didn't have an opportunity to go back. But I'm pretty sure, and I'm not going to disagree with Mr. Salerno, but it was a later date. The papers were available, and it lasted, I believe, a little bit longer. And again, I have just a concern with 5 weeks. Because of the need to try to wrap it up for folks so they know by the 4th of July for a summer holiday, I can see that. But weighed against, folks who may be out there, again, who don't have the level of sophistication, to give them the opportunity to get in the ballot, my view may be to add it. But it doesn't affect you, the June 9th deadline. I mean, it's not, you mentioned the primary, and I agree that you have to have time for the primary, but a couple of weeks, and it used to be later than June 9th. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And I believe Medford has a longer period in Boston, but I'm not going to quibble with you now, because again, I haven't had the opportunity to do the research. But I guess the question I would have is, if you were to add, I may make a motion to add a couple weeks, especially with the coronavirus, and whether it passes or not, I don't know. But I want to make sure, Nick, and I've known you for a long time, I can't see that interfering with the setting of the primary through the chair.
All right. If Mr. Salerno doesn't have a response, I have Councilor Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thought that Councilor White asked a question about whether 2 weeks longer on the nomination period would interfere with the primary date. Is that correct, through you to Councilor White?
Yes, Councilor Niedergang, I did ask that question.
Yeah, I'd like to have that question answered before I speak. Thank you.
Nick, do you have a response to that?
Yes, I do, through the chair. We can add on time if that's what the council wants. If that's the case, then I would think it would be, again, if we can do it if that's what the council wants, and it would probably be best to not add it on the date coming back, but maybe the date taking out papers.
Okay. So you're suggesting
as a matter of fact, I was looking at the 2019 calendar, and the difference in all the dates is approximately 3 days. And again, I understand the council is concerned about COVID, but I did my homework, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be any interference with COVID in the time frame that we now have. We can change it and give more time if that's what the council wants.
Okay. Councilor Niedergang?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to Councilor White for bringing this up. I completely agree with all of his points, and I would certainly support an amendment to extend the period by 2 weeks. I think this calendar has worked extremely well in my experience in all the times that I've run for office. But as Councilor White has pointed out, I won't go over all of his arguments, but as he's pointed out, we have the coronavirus, and this is a different situation from one we faced previously. And so I do think it makes sense to err on the side of giving people an opportunity to gather their signatures, should it be difficult, by extending the period. Now, I wouldn't want this to interfere with the preliminary election date, because as Mr. Salerno indicated, Yom Kippur starts, I believe, on September 16th. So that's the day after. And so, I don't want to mess with that. I think that date has been chosen very well to not interfere with the holiest days in the Jewish calendar. But if we can add 2 weeks to the nominating period in the spring, I support that. And, Councilor White seemed to be arguing for pushing it forward into June because coronavirus is likely to be less active then. And also, I think it's just going to be easier for people. It gives people a little bit more time rather than pushing it back to April 15th, which is not that far away, pushing it forward to June 23rd or something like that. I think would make more sense. Also, the weather's nicer in June. It's easier to be out there collecting signatures and social distancing. So thank you.
Council Ballantyne?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm okay with extending it to 2 weeks, but we had lengthy discussions. I don't know if it was 5, 6 years ago, about the fact that if we extended into June, all the counselors, except now the Finance Committee, were in the budget hearings every night in June. So I would ask that it not be extended into June because it doesn't give any flexibility to anybody who's collecting papers, and certainly any of the incumbents that are running again. If you started earlier, it's fine. So I'm okay with it being extended, but I don't think it should run into the budget season. Thank you.
Council White?
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess on that, first, it's an extended period of time, so I don't see how it would interfere with incumbent city councils who may want to participate in the budget process, because you'll have the same period of time to get your signatures. And again, I don't want Mr. Salerno to think I'm criticizing him. We do have coronavirus, for one, but also it's my recollection that there was a change because of the goal to have this over early so people would know what would happen during the summer, whether they can take a break or whether they have an opponent. And again, I'm not going to repeat myself. My concern is the short window of time in general. I mean, if we didn't have the coronavirus, I might be bringing this up, but especially with COVID-19. And again, I mean, my hope is we get people, novices, to run for office in the city. And, folks who may come from an immigrant background or whatever, they may not have the same social networks or be able to get signatures and such. And I really don't see a downside with this. And also extending it 2 weeks. I mean, looking at this, the current one is certification of nomination papers to be completed and filed by June 30th. I don't see how moving that 2 weeks later would have any impact as far as the preliminary election on the 14th. So, I mean, as Councilor Needigang also argued quite well, it's during the summer when you would want people to go out and get signatures, especially with the COVID-19 situation. So, my intention then is to make a motion. And again, this is not in any way critical of Mr. Salerno, to extend the period for 2 weeks so that the deadline would be June 23rd to submit nomination papers.
Okay, so is that a motion there to extend the deadline to June 23rd?
Yes, it is, Mr. President.
All right, any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Councilor Struther?
Back to press question in the, anyhow. So we can vote for this. I echo Councilor Ballantyne's idea on this, that it would be better to go earlier than later, than extending it later into the budget season necessary.
Okay. Councilor White?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't understand the logic of that. This is to extend it. So any city councils who would want to sit in the budget process, you would have the same period of time without the extension to get the signatures. So I don't see how it's a hindrance for us to do it at that period. I think all factors considered, it would be the best way to do it to allow more people to participate in getting signatures when it's warmer, especially with the COVID situation. So.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I'll just add real quick. I think I'm going to vote against the amendment, and the reason why I feel that way is I do feel like 5 weeks is plenty of time to get your papers together. Lots of times, if you have an extended deadline, it just means more procrastination, which means more opportunity to lose your papers, which has happened several times in the city's history. I had an opponent pull papers against me on the deadline and got it in within a few days. And so I just feel like 5 weeks is enough time, and I understand what Council Ballantyne and Strezzo were saying about extended into June. That's my personal opinion, but if there's no further comment, you can call the roll. Hearing no further comments, please call the roll, Mr. Clerk, on the amendment.
Mr. President, this is a roll call vote on amending the local election calendar by making the last day to submit nomination papers June 23rd, 2021. On that amendment, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
No.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
No.
Councilor Strezzo.
No.
Councilor Klingon.
No.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes, please.
Councilor Rossetti.
No.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
No.
Mr. President, you said no, right?
No.
Mr. President, 5 councilors have voted in favor of that amendment. 6 councilors are opposed. That amendment has failed.
Well, that was exciting. Split vote. All right. Are there any further discussion before we move to the motion to approve the calendar? Hearing no further comment, Councilor Davis moves to approve. Please call the roll on the calendar.
This is on the approval of the calendar as submitted. Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
No.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, 10 councilors have voted in favor of that item. 1 is opposed. The election calendar has been approved.
All right. Next item. Thank you for coming, Nick.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
The next item, Mr. President, continuing taking items out of order, is item number 43, which is an order submitted by Councilor Scott that the Director of Personnel provide this council with a list of current full-time vacancies broken down by union and non-union position, and that the administration address this council as to the reason for the high number of vacancies.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is following up on a standing order that I believe my colleague at large had placed asking for regular vacancy reports. We haven't received one of those in a while, and I believe we have somewhere north of 40 vacancies in union positions alone in the city. We have certified a very high amount of free cash, not quite record high free cash in this last pandemic year. And the need for city services is very large, as is the need for employment by people in our community. The reports I'm hearing is that jobs are being very delayed and posted, and given our own delays in being able to hire our legislative aide and outreach coordinator for the police oversight process, I'm concerned about the current state and backlog of hiring in the city. So I wanted to call attention to this and to have an understanding of our current vacancies, both in the union positions and in the non-union positions. So if it pleases the council, I ask that this be approved and a copy sent as well to Mr. Mastrobuoni, who is our budget analyst for the city.
What was that request again?
Approved and referred to finance with a copy to our budget analyst.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval, referred to the Finance Committee with a copy sent to the Budget Analyst. There we go. Thank you. All right, back to the regular order business.
Back to the regular order, Mr. President, we move to item number 8, which is an order submitted by Councilor Strezzo that the city's chief assessor provide a list of all nonprofits that have community benefit agreements or payment in lieu of taxes agreements, including their property sizes.
Also Strezzo.
Not much to say. I think this is a great thing to have, and I would just like it to please be sent to Housing and Community Development.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to the Housing Community Development Committee.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is an order submitted by Councilor Niedergang that the Mayor, Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management, Commissioner of Public Works, and Director of Health and Human Services respond to the attached questions regarding ventilation and school building readiness from public school parents.
Councilor Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as you, sir, well know, there's been a lot in the news recently about school reopenings. I'm not going to go into that. That's not our business. But the school buildings are our business. We have some oversight capacity over the school buildings. Precious little power to do anything about that, but that oversight capacity through our oversight of city departments is ours. So I've developed a bunch of questions which are included in this order that I would like the administration to answer. And I want to just say how I developed these questions. I had long conversations with my school committee colleague in Ward 5, Laura Patone, as well as a couple of other school committee members. I had some interactions with other counselors on this. And most importantly, I've been in a bunch of meetings with parent experts, quite a few of them actually from my own Ward 5, women who are building professionals, extremely knowledgeable, thoughtful, and articulate on these issues. And I've developed these questions in consultation with them. And I'll just say a little bit about what I consider to be some of the most important of these 6 questions that are in this order. And I hope everybody who's interested in school reopening issues will read them. So one of them focuses on this idea of mixed mode ventilation, which is really quite simple, that you basically use windows and fans, which apparently make a huge difference according to experts, and can be paired with HVAC and building ventilation, central HVAC ventilation systems in order to increase airflow and make a building safer for students and staff. This seems, pretty simple. It's organic. Just open the windows and buy some fans, and you can do a lot better than if you're just relying on HVAC systems. The administration seems to be quite resistant to this, and I want to understand why, because it seems like a low-cost and effective solution that other places are using that could help us to open more schools and open them more quickly. Another set of questions is about the Honeywell contract, which we've heard just a little bit about, and frankly, I don't understand a lot about the contract or what happened, and that's why I'm asking these questions. We've heard from some of our school committee colleagues that Honeywell had a contract to help with maintenance, to do contract work on maintenance on the school air circulation and HVAC systems, and that something seems to have gone wrong, and that work was either not done or done poorly, and the systems are in worse shape than the administration had expected. And so I want to find out about this. This is in our ballpark. So I'll stop there on this order. There's a bunch of other questions in there as well. And I'd ask that this be sent to Public Utilities and Public Works, where there's already some orders on school buildings. And I know there's a meeting scheduled for March 30th, and I'm looking forward to answers to some of these questions at that meeting. Thank you.
All right, we got Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on. Ewan Camper would like to sign on to 10 and 11. Councilor Scott, 10, 11, 12. Everybody wants to sign on to item 10. Full council support. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval, referred to Public Utilities, Public Works.
Item number 11 is an order submitted by Councilor Niedergang and now Ewan Campen and Scott that the Mayor and Director of Infrastructure and Asset Management and Commissioner of Public Works respond to the attached questions regarding the management and oversight of school buildings that have been raised by public school parents.
Councilor Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President. These are a different set of questions that I consider to be longer term and more macro questions about how our school buildings are managed. One of them says, does the city have sufficient staff to monitor, evaluate, assess, and maintain the school buildings adequately? This is something that many, many parents have been asking. Another one asks, how should control and oversight of school buildings be managed? And this one, I think, is very directly something that we as a council should be thinking about. Current oversight of various aspects of the school buildings and their financing is split in our city between the mayor, the school committee, and the city council. And as we all know, this has proven to be confusing and challenging in dealing with getting the school buildings ready for students and staff under COVID-19. Now, I don't have an answer or a proposal, and perhaps the organization and the oversight of our school buildings that we have now is the best we can do. But I'm not necessarily convinced of that. I would like to see a robust discussion of these questions. And as these are longer term issues and would have financial implications, I actually discussed these with Councilor White, and he suggested that they go to the Finance Committee, which I think makes sense, perhaps to be discussed as part of the budget process this year. I'm not saying that we need a reorganization in June of this year, but I would like to raise these questions and have them discussed. They might require a longer discussion than just in June, but I do think this is something that we all need to look at. Thank you.
All right, Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on, as well as Councilor Davis, and Councilor Davis has a comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Niedergang, for forwarding these questions along. I want to tie this back to actually 6 years ago this week, when a bunch of folks, myself included, got a phone call saying that the Brown School was going to be closed because the roof had collapsed. And in the ensuing weeks and months after that happened, thankfully it was at night, no one was hurt. Could have gone a lot differently, but the general response or sort of explanation from the administration, I mean, it was snow buildup. That was that year when we had all the snow, but was that there was no way we could have known. There's no way we could have known that that things were compromised in there, and through a lot of work, primarily by constituents, people in the community, public records requests, and just collecting whatever information was out there from disparate sources. Once we sort of stepped back and looked at everything, there were just years and years of reports and requests and filings made for work on the building for water leaks and the roof membrane having been replaced because it was leaking water. And the point is, if someone had the responsibility to have all of that information in one place and be looking at it, hypothetically speaking, it may have been foreseeable. Maybe not, but certainly in retrospect, when you looked at everything, it's like, well, yeah, no, it makes perfect sense that the timbers in that thing were rotting after 50, 60, 70 years, whatever it was. And so to this point, when we don't have right now and at the time, I made a request that building information be aggregated from all the different departments so that it's in one place and the people who are looking into these questions have all the information. This goes to that exact point. We need a better centralized system and people who are charged with owning our school buildings and all of our city buildings for that matter, but especially the ones where our kids are, where the kids in this community go every day. Well, at least they did back when we went to school in person. And people have that information in front of them. There's nobody in that particular incident. There's no one person who could have been said was at fault because there was no one person who had all the information. It was in 3 or 4 different departments across the city. So it's, this is a need that has been existed for a while. It's been raised before, and I like the suggestion to put it into finance because we need to make a commitment to rethink the way we the oversight of our buildings is handled, so that people have that information. People can make decisions based on all of the information that is out there, and not only one small piece of it that happens to be in the department that they're looking at the moment. So, thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd be happy to take this into finance. And I appreciate Councilor Davis's historical perspective on this. I think it points to the larger issue that you and I have been pointing out for quite some time, Mr. President, which is that far too much power has been aggregated into the hands of the executive branch here, and that our oversight role has been poorly specified. And quite frankly, our tracking of data leads to too much. The buck stops in only one place and not enough consistent oversight, which a legislative branch should properly function on. So I'm happy to take this item and to bring it in Finance Committee for robust discussion. We're still working on scheduling our next meeting, but at the next opportunity, I'll have it there.
All right, any further discussion? Councilor White would like to sign.
President, I'll be brief. I recall when Councilor Davis brought that, and a number of years have gone by, and now we're at a point where I think it's important that we do examine this. And I'm trying to remember, there was a point in time, and it might have been a long time ago, where the school department, I believe, had control over their buildings. So it might be interesting for someone to do some historical detective work to see how it sort of got to this point and maybe what had been in place in the past. They might have had a better idea back then. So again, I'm in support, and maybe I'll talk to the city clerk or whatever to see where there might be records on this, if there are any. I don't know if it was an ordinance or whether there was an agreement signed that basically delineated that all of the control would go back, the physical control would go back to the city side. Thank you.
And any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll just add that I could have told you as a child in the 80s attending the Brown School that building needs some work. And it does come back to hashtag charter reform, because the entire problem with the school reopening process has been who owns the schools. And it really, one person owns it and then nobody owns it. It's a very confusing process for everybody. And unfortunately, COVID has highlighted that. Hopefully we can address this with hashtag charter reform. Seeing no further comment, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to the Finance Committee.
Item number 12 is an order submitted by Councilor Ewan Campen and Councilor Klingon that the Chief of Police inform this council in writing how a resident may seek to expunge or seal a police report or record made by the police department.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a straightforward question, but it's one that I've realized I don't actually know the answer to. If there is an individual who believes that a record or a report by the Somerville Police Department was made in error or inappropriately, how would that person go about getting that record sealed or expunged? And I would just like to get the answer in writing, please, so that I can understand this.
All right, Councilor Scott would like to sign on, and Councilor Davis, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval. And Councilor Barr would like to sign on. Next item.
Item number 13 is an order submitted by Councilor Mba, the Director of Engineering, install a crosswalk at Woods Avenue and Route 16.
Councilor Ba.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was just a cliche, so I would like this to go to traffic and parking, please.
All right, hearing no further discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to traffic and parking.
Item number 14 is communication submitted by Councilor Mba, updating this council on the Racial and Social Justice Director hiring process.
Councilor Ba.
Thank you, Mr. President. Something I want to say thank you, the voice of reason. But yeah, I would like this to, be laid on the table, but just in brief, about this item, is just to say that it has been an engaging and collaborative hiring process, and it is nearing its end. At the end of February, the Racial and Social Justice Hiring Committee completed the second round of interviews. And at the end of last week, I'm excited to say that the committee agreed to extend an offer to a candidate. So the city's hiring department is proceeding with the necessary next steps in the hiring process. And I look forward to providing you with more specific details once I have them. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this laid on the table, no vote taken.
Very good. That brings us to item number 15, which is a report of the Committee on Confirmation of Appointments, which met on March 2nd.
Okay, I am going to recuse myself from this item, and Councilor Rossetti as chair and president, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Committee did meet. All members of the committee were in attendance. Also joining us was Deputy Chief Chris Ward from the Police Department, as well as Deputy Chief James Stanford. Ms. Kushbu, Director Kushbu Weber of Governmental Affairs, Mayor's Office was with us. Ellen Collins, the Assistant Director in Human Resources. Lauren Rankin-Yellow, Legislative Liaison. And our clerks that evening were Rose Durham and Peter Forsalis. The report is up online for anybody to view as they wish. We interviewed 4 candidates for the position of Reserve Police Officer. After lengthy dialogue and discussion and questioning, the committee approved on all 4 candidates by a 3-2 vote to accept the recommendation of the administration and approve the confirmation to the position of Reserve Police Officer. If this report is accepted, what these 4 positions will mean is that all of the current reserve list officers will now be attending camp. There will be nobody left on the reserve list. And this also fills all the retirements to date, as was voted by this council last July for our current fiscal year budget. There are no additional positions yet added to the police department by this committee. One member, Kevin Enriquez, has a little twist to his. He himself paid and put himself in advance through the police academy in Lowell. So that individual will soon be coming back before us at the request of the chief and the administration to consider approving him to become a police officer and be pinned. These 4 approvals this evening are to go to the reserve list, and they will attend police academies. The other 2 items we talked about that evening were presented a couple of years back by Councilor Mba, that the administration established a independent task force to look into hiring more minorities in various departments, most especially the fire and police departments, and that the administration create an equity task force to look at the city's hiring practices for all city positions in boards or commissions. The community had back and forth dialogue. We agreed to keep this item in committee. It will be brought back up again at our very next meeting next week. And Ms. Collins promised to have the report available to us of the data that she and her team are creating for us. We thought it might be submitted for this evening's agenda, but I don't see it noted unless it's a late item. And I had said to her that if she couldn't get it to us for the agenda this evening, please have it sent to the committee by tomorrow so we have time to review that. No further, as I said, the details of the interviews can be read online. I move that this report be accepted as submitted. Given that the president has recused himself, I will ask my colleagues, anybody have any questions on the report? Hearing none, because the president has to recuse himself, Mr. Clerk, could you call the roll on the report of confirmation of appointments and the acceptance of the report?
Certainly. On the approval or acceptance of the confirmation of appointments and personnel matters committee report, Councilor Niedergang,
Yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin. I record Councilor McLaughlin is recused. Madam President, 10 councilors have voted in favor, none are opposed, 1 is recused. That committee report has been accepted.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Clerk, could you go to the next item, please?
That brings us, Madam President, to item number 16, which is a report of the Committee on Finance, which met on March 9th. You're muted.
Sorry, all, I was muted. Councilor Scott, please.
All right. Thank you, Madam President. The committee met on March 9th for 80 minutes, 79 minutes, breaking my previous record. It was action-packed. There is a request to appropriate $2.2 million from free cash to the Water and Sewer Stabilization Fund. As a recap, the Water and Sewer Stab Fund is for capital improvements that are needed to the system, of which there are many. However, it is unusual that in many of the past years that has been funded with the retained earnings balance. That's the surplus that we run from the fees, the water and sewer fees, versus the amount it costs to maintain the system. Currently, we have just over $2.5 million in retained earnings, which should be sufficient to hit this funding goal. However, the judgment was made by Director Bean to use free cash for this. Approving this free cash appropriation would decrease our, as stated, near record free cash levels to $8.2 million. If in a future date it was noted that the City Council believes that those funds are needed elsewhere, they can be appropriated out of the stabilization fund to direct toward other purposes, as was done about a year ago with COVID expenses. That was recommended for approval. There was an item to accept the pro bono services of Todd and Weld to advise the city with respect to establishment of safe consumption sites. There was a previous grant for thermal imaging cameras from the fire department, which had been left in committee for some time until the surveillance technology impact reports were submitted, completed, and approved. Since those are now approved, that item is recommended for approval. And then there was an extensive discussion about 3 mid-year positions requested to be added to the mobility department, 2 of which are planners types, and 1 of which is a communication specialist. This differs substantially from the previous request that came in March of last year, I believe in our second to last meeting before pandemic sent us all into Zoom. That request was for added levels of management. This is for strictly worker bees. And there was a presentation made from the Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets, which argued eloquently for its adoption. After some discussion, it received unanimous support. And so these 3 mid-year positions are before us this evening to be approved. There was also discussion of a transfer being requested from unspent salaries in the planning department, again, perhaps referencing those earlier vacancies, to initiate 4 new studies. The request right now is for $50,000. The total tab for these studies will be just shy of $200,000. Studies are a bike network plan, a bus network plan, a transportation demand management plan, and an organizational design study in response to the fatalities, the very unfortunate fatalities that we've had in the city, pedestrian fatalities, and the clamoring demand from the public it has been decided that the administration would like to urgently proceed with reimagining the mobility department. And as a result, is devoting money right now to engaging with those questions. There was some discussion of that. It is also recommended for approval. And then finally, there was an item submitted by Councilor Mba and Councilor Niedergang, as with the mid-year position request, that is in line with our people's budget discussions. For councilors who are not in Finance Committee, these people's budget discussions are really about bringing in your ideas of what the next budget's priority should be and how we should reallocate funds to ensure that our stated goals, our rhetoric are lived up to ensure that we're able to execute on the visions and various plans that the city has. This is an excellent example, and I'm very grateful to Councilor Mba and Councilor Niedergang and their leadership in working with a very cross-interest group of advocates citywide to get to the heart of the matter of what we actually need. I found this to be a very interesting discussion point. There was no action to be taken on it because it is an item for discussion. But as a result of that discussion, we are going to keep it in committee. And as we get more counselors and more community organizations bringing forward these priority requests, it's my hope that they will be all part of a discussion as we get closer and closer to budget season. I just, again, cannot thank Councilors Mba and Niedergang enough, and the entire Somerville Alliance for Safe Streets for their work in bringing this kind of essential early prioritization conversation to the City Council, because I think that's how a collaborative and responsive budget process can and should work. So with that, that one being kept in committee, I believe that was all the substantive items before us, and I ask that the committee report be accepted as submitted. Thank you.
All right, Council Scott moves to accept the committee report. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will just say that I am very grateful that the people's budget is still alive and well, surviving COVID, and I look forward to helping with that process as well. So seeing no further discussion, please call the roll, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. President, there's a roll call vote on the approval of the Finance Committee report. On that item, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne. Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of that motion. That committee report has been accepted.
All right, and now we have a roll call vote on an item.
That's correct, Mr. President. Roll call vote on the appropriation of $2.2 million from the Water and Sewer Stabilization Fund to the Water and Sewer Stabilization Fund to be used for capital projects. On that item, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne. Councilor
Yes.
Ballantyne. Councilor
Yes.
Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott. Councilor Scott. I don't record Councilor Scott's vote. Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, 10 councilors have voted in favor of that item. One is absent. That item has been approved.
All right. next
Mr. President, I see that Councilor Scott, I think, his technology failed him, but I think he's back in the room again.
Would you like to record your vote?
So,
If you would, please, that's a yes. Thank you.
All right, that's a yes.
Very good, Mr. President. In that case, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of that item. That item is approved.
All right, next item.
Item number 17 is a report of the Committee on Land Use, which met on March 2nd.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The Committee on Land Use met in a joint meeting with the Planning Board to have a public hearing on 2 packets of amendments presented by the administration. These are both available as agenda attachments, and they're in a helpful table. The large majority of these amendments are sort of clerical clarifications, fixing mistakes, and then there's a small number of kind of substantive amendments that the committee will continue discussing once the public comment period closes tomorrow, and these will be on our agenda for next Tuesday. They're on issues such as language around how we're going to regulate electric vehicle charging stations, an amendment that has to do with buying out civic space requirements very close to 93 in Assembly Square, and I would encourage any councilors who are interested to look through those, and I anticipate that at our next land use meeting, we will take up and deliberate those as well. After the public hearing, I introduced 2 not proposed amendments, but discussions in advance of new amendments. The first is to consider regulating the height of rooftop mechanicals on commercial buildings abutting neighborhood residence and urban residence district. The idea is that currently they're totally unregulated, and while that might work in places like Boynton Yards, maybe in the future in kind of more transformational districts, in places where commercial buildings in particular that might have large kind of HVAC ventilation stacks on the roof, I think it's appropriate to consider regulating those so that the neighbors kind of know what to expect. And we had a helpful discussion on that, and I look forward to bringing forward a proper amendment. And we also discussed the possibility of removing mandated parking minimums outside of transit areas. This, I anticipate, will be a larger discussion, and I anticipate that members both on the committee and the council at large will want to weigh in on this. And so if anyone is interested in kind of the initial conversations we had, I would direct them to the meeting minutes and the video, and I will certainly keep this council in the loop as we move forward on that. And with that, I ask that the committee report be accepted as submitted.
All right, Councilor Ewan Campen moves to accept the committee report as submitted. Any discussion? Seeing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Item number 18 is a report of the Committee on Public Health and Public Safety, meeting as a committee of the whole on March 1st.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee did meet as a committee of the whole. We primarily talked about an update on the COVID response and the vaccine rollout efforts, as well as discussion on a specific discussion on school building openings. The report is extensive, and I would request that it be approved as submitted.
All right, wonderful committee report. Any discussion?
Mr. President, it's
Rossetti.
Mr. President, it's Councilor Rossetti. Thank you.
Oh, you there, Councilor Rossetti?
Sorry, there. Can you hear me now, sir?
We can hear you.
Okay, my apologies. Through you to the chair of the committee, to our colleague, Councilor Davis. I believe I made a motion at that meeting asking for the numbers of the student population from the administration for this evening's meeting. Have you heard anything on that? To Mr. Davis, to Councilor Davis.
Yes, thank you. For you, Mr. President, I do not believe I've seen a response to that. I'm looking on Minitrack to see if it's linked to the item. I've not seen anything. Perhaps if there's someone from the administration that could respond as to the status of that request.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. President, I see Ms. Rankin-Yellow is here. I don't know if she can respond because today was the day I was looking for that data.
All right, she has her mic on, so it sounds ready. Lauren, do you have a response?
Through the chair, thank you. Can you hear me? Sorry, I've been having some audio issues as well tonight, so I'm just making sure I'm up and running. Great. Councilor Rossetti, would you mind just repeating to make sure I'm understanding what was supposed to be submitted by today?
I was looking for we were talking about the school district, and I wanted to know the student population last year versus this year, because it bounces towards finance, and I am of the belief that unfortunately a lot of families have chosen to relocate their children this year. So I wanted to know what the numbers of the population were October of 2020 versus, I think if I remember correctly, my motion was from October 19 and then to October of 2020, because as we know, that's when the numbers need to be submitted to the state. Councilor Davis, I see, wants to speak. Maybe he has my actual motion up on his screen, but nobody from the administration led me to believe they couldn't give those numbers to me because they were in the meeting as well. So I really was expecting that answer today.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Councilor Rossetti, for that explanation, and I apologize.
Mr. President, if I may, clarification on the request. So that I put there was one motion made, and I believe this is corrected. If anyone else recalls differently, then by all means, I'm happy to entertain a motion to amend the minutes. The formal motion that was made was specific to the transportation, but in the ensuing conversation, Councilor Rossetti asked for data on how many students had opted to remain virtual as opposed to returning, as well as a comparison of enrollment for this year versus last. So that was a request. The motion itself was specific to the transportation, but the request to the administration was made in the ensuing discussion, and it's in item 210741 in the committee report.
Through the chair, thank you. So it's my understanding from speaking with Director Weber that information would come from the schools, rather than through the administration. And I apologize if I don't believe I was present for the conversation that you're referencing. If there was a different conversation, but my understanding is that would be that data would actually come from the schools. But I am happy to follow up after this meeting and verify that and reach out to you directly, Councilor Rossetti.
Mr. President, may I?
Councilor Rossetti.
Thank you. Having served on the school committee for 14 years and being very respectful to my colleagues who today serve on the school committee, I'm not looking to step on their toes and take their jobs from them at all. I just wanted to know, as it related to budget, I wanted to know what the enrollment numbers were. Now, nobody from the administration who was at our meeting of public health and public safety suggested that I'd be best getting that directly from the school district. I know I can. I chose not to want to bother them because they are beyond busy right now. But if I have to pick up the phone tomorrow and call the superintendent myself, I guess I will. But I'm really not happy right now to find out tonight, when I thought I was going to get the answer today, to be given this answer. It's really unacceptable, totally unacceptable.
Any further discussion? Here, no further discussion. The committee report is laid on the table for approval.
Mr. President, item number 19 is a request of the mayor requesting the reappropriation of $87,114 in CPA funding from the Somerville Museum's Collection Care Project to its Elevator ADA Accessibility Project.
Councilor White is recused from this. Councilor Scott, are these any items for approval, or can we refer this to committee?
I'm happy to move several of them for approval this evening. Just to give my colleagues some context, this is just part of the ongoing elevator saga over there, and this is reallocating from a project that the CPA committee had previously approved into the elevator bucket. So
Okay.
I'll move this for approval.
All right, Councilor Scott moves for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 20 is a request of the mayor requesting approval to pay our fiscal year 2019 prior year invoice of $188 using available funds in the Treasury Department's OM account for 2018 invoice for LaserJet printer servicing.
Big money. Councilor Scott.
Move for approval, sir.
All right, seeing no discussion, this item is laid on the table for approval.
Item 21 is a request to the mayor requesting the acceptance of a grant of $74,400 from the Mass Office of Public Safety for the police department staffing.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I know there's additional focus on funding for public safety. This grant is one that the city has applied for and received in the past. It's something that they're accustomed to using for funding the overtime line of the police department. Given that it is a recurring grant, I would move for approval.
Okay, I have to recuse myself from this one. Councilor Rossetti, could you take this?
Yes, sir, I'm here. Councilor Scott, can you repeat that, please?
This is a recurring grant, and I move for approval, ma'am.
Item 21.
Item 21, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so Councilor Scott moves for approval of ID number 24120, item 21 on the agenda. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, given that the president, well, needs to recuse himself. Well, item 22, are you going to, Councilor Scott, not to move forward, but on 22, will you be making a recommendation is similar? Councilor Scott, I cannot hear you.
Well, on this one, I actually wanted to defer to Madam President. On this one, I wanted to defer to Councilor Euban, since he has been at the forefront of the surveillance questions to ensure that they fall afoul of any.
Okay, so we'll stay with 21 then. On the motion on item 21 of the agenda, any discussion? Hold on, please, colleagues. If there is none, Mr. Clerk, could you please call the roll on the approval of the motion before us for item 21?
Certainly, Madam President. On the approval of item number 21, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin. Madam President, I record 10 councilors in favor of that item. 1 is recused. That item has been approved.
Thank you. Next item, please, Mr. Clerk.
Next, we have item number 22, which is a request to the mayor requesting the acceptance of an $18,816.47 grant with no new match required from the Boston Mayor's Office of Emergency Management to the Police Department for the Critical Infrastructure Monitoring System camera network upgrades.
Councilor Scott, do you wish to speak to this item?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this is a Department of Homeland Security Urban Area Security Initiative grant, similar to others. However, this is for the replacement and upgrade of 4 what they call critical infrastructure cameras that are used to monitor evacuation routes in the city. I believe these have been approved previously under the Surveillance Technology Impact Report, but I just wanted to make sure that Councilor Ewan-Campen, who has been leading the efforts of the council in that, felt comfortable with the approval of the grant, or see if he had any comment on it before accepting it.
Councilor Ewan-Campen.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Through you, thank you very much, Chairman Scott, for the opportunity. So we received an email today from Director Weber saying that the sum of money is requested to replace 4 existing critical infrastructure cameras that monitor evacuation routes, as Chairman Scott just said. I just was hoping, I see Ms. Racaniello is in the audience. I just want to confirm that this does not change the capacity of these cameras in any way that would be relevant to the surveillance oversight ordinance?
Through the chair, to Councilor Egan-Campen, that's correct. I believe that these would be the, I know that the impact report was approved for the Homeland Security cameras, which would be the cameras that monitor evacuation routes. Once the impact report is approved, the approved use is limited to the use as outlined in the impact report. So this would not alter what the approved use of the cameras are.
Great. Through the president, thank you very much. With that in mind, I'm comfortable approving this. Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Councilor Scott?
I believe Councilor Needham had a comment.
Yep, Councilor Needham.
Just a brief comment, Mr. President. I've had many constituents ask me, what's that camera up on that pole? Whenever I've asked, it turns out it's one of these cameras designed to monitor evacuation routes. So a lot of the cameras that people may see around the city, they're not active. They're in place so that if there were a disaster and evacuation had to happen, public safety authorities could monitor and see what was going on so that they can get people out of the area more quickly. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item's laid on the table for approval.
Mr. President, I'd ask that we waive the reading of 23, 24, and 26 and move for approval. They are two minor grants for fire safety, education, and prevention, as well as an extension of the Butterfly Garden contract. Again, I'd ask waive reading and move for approval.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, 23, 24, and 25?
23, 24, and 26.
26. Laid on the table for approval, 23, 24, and 26.
Thank you.
Mr. President, that brings us up to item number 28, which is request of the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Kimberly Sheridan of the Commission for Women.
This item will be referred to Confirmation of Appointments Committee.
Item 29 is request the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Arlen Weiner to the Commission for Women.
This item will be referred to Confirmation of Appointments.
30 is a request the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Murphy Langevin to the Urban Forestry Committee.
This item will be referred to Confirmation of Appointments.
31 is request the mayor requesting confirmation of the appointment of Rose White to the Community Preservation Act Committee.
This item will be referred to Confirmation of Appointments.
Item number 33 is a communication from the city solicitor responding to a council item with an amendment proposal for ordinances 10-1 and 10-1.1 to eliminate specified levels of patrol and superior officers in the police department.
All right, this item will be referred to Legislative Matters.
Item number 34 is a communication from the city clerk requesting approval to release 12 sets of executive session minutes as described within.
Okay, so real quick explanation. As we discussed before, there's a number of executive session minutes that we've deemed appropriate to release to the public. Rather than go into executive session today and go over every one, I would like the councilors on their own time to review these minutes, make amendments or write down amendments as they see fit. And please, please, please contact me to let me know if there are any specific minutes that you think need amendments. If there are no amendments necessary, we can vote to approve the minutes at the next council meeting. If amendments are necessary, we will need executive session. So please contact me. For now, this item will be laid on the table. No vote taken.
Very good. That brings us to new business. And item number 35, which is an item of new.
Sorry, Councilor White moves to waive the readings of items number 35 to 40 and move for approval or committee, Councilor White.
Move to approve this evening. I've gone with the city clerk over them and everything is in order.
All right, 35 to 40. Any discussion? See none.
Mr. President,
Councilor
yeah,
Rosati.
I just want to Hold on 1 minute. Okay, 35 to 40. Yes, no, I'm fine with that. My apologies. Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, these items are laid on the table for approval.
Item number 41 is a communication submitted by Matthew Shannon, submitting a petition to revoke the junk dealer license held by Tosh Enterprises, LLC.
Council White?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like that referred to the License and Permits Committee, and the city clerk will be we will schedule a meeting on a show cause order about whether the license should be revoked or not.
All right, very good. This item is referred to licenses and permits.
Item number 42 is an order submitted by Councilor Niedergang that the Director of SBCD discuss with his council the changes that are being considered or could be considered in MBTA bus routes to better serve bus riders following the opening of 5 new Green Line stations this year.
Councilor Niedergang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like this to go to traffic and parking. I'm planning to have a discussion with some top MBTA officials at the April 12th Traffic and Parking Committee meeting, a discussion on this topic as well as on the topic of a north-south bus route in Somerville that would say, reach from Union Square over to the Mystic Development and 10 Hills in that area. It's long been something that members of the community and councilors have been talking about. And so I'm looking forward to that discussion and hoping that we can reconfigure the city's the bus routes that the MBTA provides to provide better service to residents of the city now that we have the Green Line stations coming in at the end of the year. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Councilor Scott.
Councilor Niedergang for bringing this forward. I may have never been more excited for a traffic and parking meeting, and I'd like to sign on. Thank you.
Councilor Scott would like to sign on. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to traffic and parking.
Item number 44 is an order submitted by Councilor McLaughlin and Councilor Klingon that the Chief of Police appear before this Council's Committee on Public Health and Public Safety to discuss the policy on drug possession arrests for the last 5 years.
Okay, so I'm sure most people understand my position on the war on drugs and arresting people for personal choices and whether they're bad choices or good choices. This is basically to follow up on a policy that I believe exists where we do not arrest people simply for possession. People can be arrested for possession amongst other crimes that are committed, but I just want to see how this policy is working and what we can do further to make sure that people with drug problems are treated as people with a sickness and people who need help and not incarceration. So I have discussed this with the Chief of Police, but I would like to have a full conversation in the Public Health and Safety Committee. Any discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval with a copy sent to Public Health and Safety.
Item 45 is a resolution submitted by Councilor McLaughlin and Klingon that the mayor allocate funding for 2 dual diagnosis and social work clinical outreach positions in the Community Outreach Help and Recovery Department in the fiscal 22 budget.
All right, Councilor Strezzo would like to sign on, and I'll just be very quick that, I think we're all on the same page as far as the need for clinical outreach, for social work and addressing the homeless population, people suffering with addiction, and finding alternatives to incarceration in prison. This is what this is about. And I see Councilor Strezzo, Davis, Bauer would like to sign on. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this item is laid. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. I'd be happy to bring this into the Finance Committee. I'll work with you on scheduling when you'd like that to appear, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to the Finance Committee.
Item 46 is an order submitted by Councilor McLaughlin and Councilor Klingon that the Director of the Community Outreach Help and Recovery Department be fully integrated into police leadership decisions to ensure a behavioral health perspective is considered in all policy decisions.
Similar issue, the CORE program, which is a department within the police department, does a lot of good work around trying to deter people from imprisonment and help people with addiction, all the same things that we were just talking about. But they are just one person, or there is one person who is a staff person there who doesn't have much oversight over day-to-day policy decisions. And I think if we're going to transition to a model where public health is taken into consideration over incarceration and imprisonment, that person should be at the table. So that's what this is about. Councilor Strezzo would like to sign on. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval and referred to the Public Health and Safety Committee. Councilor Ballantyne would like to sign on as well.
Very good. Item number 47 is an order submitted by Councilor McLaughlin that the Commissioner of Public Works remove the graffiti on Main Ave along I-93 and repair any damaged fencing that separates the neighborhood from the highway.
All right, this item can be laid on the table and referred to as work complete. Thank you, DPW, for getting right on top of that.
Very good. Item number 48 is an order submitted by Councilor McLaughlin that the city solicitor and the director of SBCD perform a nexus study to determine the viability of a home rule petition requiring developers who receive special permits to make contributions to mitigate pollution.
Could you read the next item as well, please?
And item 49 is an ordinance submitted by Councilor McLaughlin requesting amendments to the zoning ordinance as contained within.
Okay, so Councilor Davis would like to sign on to both. And before people decide to sign on, I should explain to you what's happening here because it's kind of complicated. So I submitted the zoning ordinance amendment on behalf of the planning department to expedite this process. It has been reviewed by them and the legal department, who have no objections to this. But for what they are looking for is they are concerned that the 5 times multiplier for open space or civic space is not enforceable. And they would like to discuss that and come up with a different formula for how we get payment in lieu of open space. So that's their perspective. The reason I'm bringing this up and connecting it to a nexus study for air pollution is I don't want open space or civic space next to the highways. It's never been a good thing for these highways to be so close to our community to begin with. They've caused a tremendous amount of pain in terms of fine particle matter affecting people's health and safety. And if I had my way, which I hope we can get to at some point, I would waive the requirement for public space by these spots and use that in lieu money for air pollution mitigation. And if that pollution mitigation comes in the form of open space, that's great. But there are other methods as well, such as sound barriers on I-93, different ways that we can address tree walls, anything that will address air pollution on I-93. And and McGrath Highway as well. And I really just feel like this is an issue that I've been bringing up for several years. I have not gotten the full support that I feel necessary to make this happen. And I see this, the request from the city staff to address open space as an opportunity to hold people accountable to develop a plan to address air pollution. If this plan does not go forward, I just want a plan. I want something done about air pollution on I-93. I have, let's see, Councilor Davis signed on, Councilor Barr, Councilor Strezzo has a question, and Councilor White.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. So with that, because don't get me started on those sound barriers on I-93. So, but as far as I understand, that's a state regulated decision. So could developers front the money to make that possible? Did you
So that's what this would suggest is, so we have, and again, this will be discussed in committee, so I don't want to elaborate too much on it. It's very complicated, and I'm only speaking for my half of this amendment. But basically what this would do is if you didn't want to build open space next to the highway, you could give a payment in lieu of that. And I would like that payment to go towards pollution mitigation. So currently, any in lieu payments for lack of open space goes towards open space. So I would like some consideration for air pollution when open space itself not only doesn't help address open space, air pollution, but will actually expose people to air pollution.
I'm following this and I'd like to sign on, and so the state would not, so we're following it, but the state, we could get it before the state funding, I don't know.
Yes, I'm not waiting for the state. That's the biggest problem, is that the state does not deem us worthy of sound barriers. So if we can find a way to get developers to help pay, and it's not just about sound barriers, it's about pollution mitigation in general. So funding to address the long-standing problem of air pollution on I-93.
I'm in, sign me up. I'm
All right,
looking forward to following this.
Strezzo.
Thank you.
Councilor Strezzo and Klingon would like to sign on. Councilor White?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick question. In 48, is that also with the city staff recommending approval, or is it just 49?
So the city staff, I was assisted by the legal department on 48. 49 was a city staff that I am assisting them on. So 48 was approved by Solicitor Shapiro. And this is an avenue. It's an avenue to address this. It doesn't have to be the only one, but this is what I have on the table right now.
Yeah, just real quick question. I'm sort of fascinated by it because the other times we've done it, it's sort of gone into like the linkage fee for commercial developments. That goes to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Then there's the other linkage fee that goes into the, I forget the title of it, but the workers, it's the training fund or something like that. So I was wondering where this money is anticipated to go. Do they have a special fund? Is it going to be like an organization to oversee it? Is it going to go in the city's? I don't think it'll go in the city's budget, general funds, but maybe it could. So I'm just again intrigued by it. I know it's going to go to committee, but I just wonder.
Well, a separate fund would need to be created, but the solicitor's office advised me that in order to justify that fund, we should do a nexus study to determine the viability of the home rule petition.
Yeah, you'd have to do that to get the home rule petition approved. Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, these two items are laid on the table. Well, item 48 is laid on the table for approval, referred to land use, and item 49 will be referred to land use with a copy to the planning board.
Very good. That brings us up to item number 50, which is an order submitted by Councilor Strezzo that the Director of SBCD and the Director of Communications discuss with this Council's Committee on Housing and Community Development creating and marketing an app that promotes and incentivizes the frequenting of Somerville's small businesses.
Councilor Strezzo.
Thank you. This was brought forward to me, to us by the Ball Square Business Association. I think it's really which we talked about a couple of months ago, trying to find ways to support our small businesses and do everything we can. And I think this could be something that I'm really excited to talk about this, and I think it could be a help. Thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval. Did you want this to go to committee? Housing and Community Development. Referred to Housing and Community Development.
It's brief. Thank you.
Item number 51 is an item of new business. It's a drain layers license application submitted by M. DeStasio Excavation Contractors.
Move to approve.
Council White moves to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, this item is laid on the table for approval.
52 is a communication from Tufts University, which responded to two council items with respect to student housing.
All right, this item is laid on the table, placed on file with a copy to Housing Community Development.
Mr. President, that brings us to the end of items on the agenda. There's one laid on.
Mr. Clerk, 1 second up. No comment, Councilor Strezzo?
I'm fumbling here. I meant to comment, but yes, I was hoping to send it to Housing and Community Development. Thank you.
Okay. Laid on the table, placed on file, sent to Housing Community Development. Mr. Clerk, go ahead.
There's just one late item that I'm aware of, Mr. President, and that is an item submitted by Councilor White that the Director of Water and Sewer and any other appropriate city departments timely and appropriately notify residents when water service will be interrupted because of city activity, especially construction.
Councilor White.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since it's 9 o'clock, I figured I could speak on this for 2 hours so that we can go to our usual 11 o'clock closing time. But seriously, this is just a quick one. It's a nuts and bolts one, but I've had some constituents complain about when their water had been turned off. They contacted 311 hoping to get some information on it. 311 didn't have any information. Then one of them called the police, and then the police forwarded them to the fire department, and the fire department explained why. My hope would be that there would be coordination whenever something like this happens. There's a water problem, there's going to be a turnoff, that it be immediately communicated to 311, maybe put in the computer system, so that then when folks call up, they understand what it is. Hopefully there might be a time period that is also estimated, so they'll know when their water is going to be turned off. And another event, constituent was complaining they hadn't gotten any notice that the water was turned off. They spoke to the neighbor. The neighbor said, well, somebody had knocked on the door at like 8 o'clock in the morning, which is good that they're taking, the city's taking an active role. But if they're going to do that, maybe they could have some real quick flyers or something made up so that they can be distributed in the neighborhood in case folks are, taking a shower or something at 8 a.m. and not available, assuming that the water wasn't turned off at that point in time, because they couldn't be in the shower anyway. So there's no need for this to go to committee. I just hope, maybe the mayor's office will take this advice and relay it to folks. Again, so the 311 is updated appropriately.
All right, Councilor Barr would like to sign on. Any further discussion? Hearing none, this item's laid on the table for approval.
Mr. President, there are no further items that I'm aware of.
All right. Let's take all the items laid on the table off and do a roll call vote to approve.
Mr. President?
Right.
Thank you. Because I've recused myself on number 19, that's been lumped in that, so I'd have to ask to sever item 19 out.
Okay, we'll have to sever 19, and I have an item that I recused myself from as well.
Mr. President, we already voted on all your recused items, I believe.
Thank you very much. So I guess we need a roll call to sever 19, Mr. Clerk?
No, we can just do a separate roll call vote on 19.
Yep, let's do 19, and then we'll do everything else. Thank you.
Item number, the roll call vote is on the approval of item number 19, which was, trying to find it. It was a request of the mayor requesting the reappropriation of $87,000 for the benefit of the Somerville Museum's elevator project.
All right, please call the roll.
On that item, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White. Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, 10 councilors voted in favor of the item. 1 is recused. That item has been approved.
All right, now on the remaining items laid on the table.
On the remaining items, this is a roll call vote on the motion to approve items 3 through 13, 17 through 18, 20, 22 through 24, 26, 35 through 40, 42 through 46, 48, 50, and 51, and the late item that was submitted by Councilor White, and also placing items 47 and 52 on file. On that motion, Councilor Niedergang.
Yes.
Councilor White.
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne.
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen.
Yes.
Councilor Davis.
Yes.
Councilor Strezzo.
Yes.
Councilor Klingon.
Yes.
Councilor Mba.
Yes.
Councilor Scott,
Yes.
Councilor Rossetti,
Yes.
and Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors have voted in favor of that motion. It has been approved.
All right, we got 3 hours to midnight. Any demands for equal time? Hearing no discussion, Councilor Klingon moves to adjourn. Let's please call the roll on adjournment.
This is a roll call vote on adjourning this meeting. On the item, Councilor Needlegang,
Ooh-ha, yes.
Councilor White,
Yes.
Councilor Ballantyne,
Yes.
Councilor Ewan Campen,
Ooh-ha, yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yep.
Councilor Strezzo,
Yes.
Councilor Klingon,
Yes.
Councilor Mba,
Yes, please.
Councilor Scott,
Woo-ha, I got you all in yes.
Councilor Rossetti.
No. Teasing. Yes.
And Councilor McLaughlin.
I know JT and Ben would know who Buster Rhymes is, but I'm really impressed with you, Councilor Needlegang. Yes.
Mr. President, all 11 councilors voted in favor of adjournment.
All right, we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.